you're watching us again. First of all, I don't know who you are or who you think you are, but these conversations are private, and I very much do not care for you watching these things. So please leave now.
Yeah, I'm a little self-conscious, so
Yeah, exactly. I honestly have no idea how these things are ending up on the internet, but I'm very uncomfortable with it. And at the same time, I refuse to stop talking to you about movies.
yeah, yeah, same.
Yeah. So I know that's going to help a ton with the subscribers. Like, subscribers are going to be coming in like crazy. Everyone's going to stick through this whole video after I told them leave and go away, you weirdo. Hello. Welcome to Ignore the Bell. I am Nathan.
And I'm Tyler.
Today we are talking about Tim Burton, all things Tim Burton.
Yes. Maybe not quite all things Tim Burton, but we'll do our best.
Many things Tim Burton movies in general, and not all of them, but many of them.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. Hope you enjoy it.
Oh man, I wish this discussion could go on forever.
Ignore the bell. We're gonna keep going, people.
All right.
All right. So our timer is going 60 minutes. We're going to go for at least 60 minutes on Tim Burton.
At least.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At least. We're going to go minimum of 60 minutes on Tim Burton.
Yeah.
All right. So I think what we should do before we get into it is let's just go over his filmography as far as his directing credits. So I'll go through that. Get comfortable, folks. This could take a while because he's got a lot of features. Starting with Pee-wee's Big Adventure, 1985. Beetlejuice, 1988. Batman, 1989. Edward Scissorhands, 1990. Batman Returns, 92. Ed Wood, 1994. Mars Attacks, 1996. Sleepy Hollow from 99. Planet of the Apes, 2001. Big Fish, 2003. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005. Corpse Bride, 2005. Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, 2007. Alice in Wonderland, 2010. Dark Shadows from 2012. Frankenweenie, 2012. Big Eyes, 2014. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, 2016. And coming up very soon is Dumbo.
Yeah. So many films.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy just how frequently he's been able to come out with these films. Because I mean, if you've got a director who's been around for whatever, like 40 years, and they have that many credits, that would still be impressive. But I mean, Tim Burton's only been around for like 30 some odd, right? You said the first one was in 85.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 34 years since his first feature.
Yeah. And he's been coming out with one like every other year pretty much.
Yeah, every 2 to 3 years, pretty consistently for like 34 years.
Yeah. And sometimes two in 1 year.
Yeah, for real. I think, and what's crazy to me too is that these are not paint by number films.
Right.
These are visionary films that differ wildly in tone, the aesthetics of the film, the mise en scène, like just everything about them. Like even though like they all very much have a Tim Burton-esque feel, but they're really, really varied.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is like the one complaint that I hear people talk about with Tim Burton films is that they're all like the same, they all look the same or whatever, and it's like not really.
You could make that argument that you could say that he's kind of got a little bit of a through line within his work that he definitely has got the goth aesthetic that comes in,
but and the outsider characters and stuff like that.
But if you're talking about them looking the same, then it's like, okay, I mean, there's a certain amount of like a lot of shadows, a lot of dark, a lot of like leather and with chrome and steel and all of that. But
then you've got like Big Fish,
Right.
which is it's not dark, and I mean it's
No.
got dark moments, but it's not like very dark and
No.
not everybody's pale or whatever. No, it's got a lot of bright colors and fantastical elements in there that are, yeah, like,
Absolutely. I mean, and he started with Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
yes,
You know, it's
yeah,
like because he had this early on in his career. I think you could make that criticism, but I think it's a little similar to M. Night Shyamalan, where you've got people have seen the first 4 or 5 that the director's done, and then they're just like, I know exactly who this director is, and then they ignore everything that comes after that. Because it's like
right.
Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns. Okay, definitely all 4 of those have got elements that are visually very similar, although Edward Scissorhands is juxtaposing that often with the suburban community.
Yes, absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
but it's like, but aside from that, like then, like I mean, Mars Attacks sure isn't, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Charlie and the
That's
Chocolate Factory sure isn't.
yeah.
Alice in Wonderland.
It, here's the crazy thing. I could talk about, I think, any of the films that he's done for an entire hour.
I know, me too. Well, that's the thing, because yeah, I before we did this, and I was thinking, I'm like, oh, do I really want to like, do we want to try to even take on Tim Burton in a single podcast? But if like we just treat it as like kind of let's like a nice big overarching look at Tim Burton, and then I
Yeah.
think later on maybe what we'll do is we'll pick out a couple that
Mhm.
will clump together. Like if we do,
Yeah.
the dark films and then the highly saturated, colorful films, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, and then have an episode on the biopics, which
right, biopics,
because
that'd be an interesting one too.
he did Ed Wood
Yep.
and Big Eyes,
Yeah.
neither of which I haven't seen either, but I would like to see both. And I know that I'm missing out with Ed Wood, but um,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, especially if like you have seen oh, what is it? The Disaster Artist, right? Tommy Wiseau
Yes.
and with James Franco and Seth Rogen doing this kind of let's recreate the making of the room. Like let's recreate the room and do like a behind the scenes look at everything that went on with this. And Tommy
Yeah.
Wiseau being the worst director ever. And for anybody who is unfamiliar with Ed Wood, he was a real director from I think the 1950s, 1940s, 1950s, somewhere around there, who was considered to be just this hack director, this the worst director to ever live. But at the same time, his films were so much fun, in part because they were so bad that they were good, and that he was just
Mm.
having the greatest time of his life making these movies, and everything within a movie just seemed amazing to him. And I think like there's a certain amount of whimsy involved in that, and it's just like
Hmm.
making movies is such a fun, interesting thing that one can even make a profession out of this. That
Right.
if you put anything on film, as this podcast demonstrates, some people will watch it and enjoy it, and who knows why.
Yeah, even if we tell them not to, they'll still keep watching.
Right, right, exactly.
Yeah. So one of the standouts to me is Mars Attacks,
Oh,
which
I was going to do the same thing. I was going to say that stands out to me. Go
I
for
I really really enjoy that film. It's so
it. Me
much
too.
fun.
Me too. Um,
It's like it's stupid and goofy, but
yep.
it's almost more realistic than other uh, alien invader movies because it's just like, yeah, they're just gonna kill us all. There's nothing we can do,
Right. Right.
and it'll
Exactly.
be the weirdest thing that will end up killing them, which is totally a play on, War of the Worlds, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah, but it's
Yeah, because War of the
so
Worlds, it's like, isn't it? It's water. Or no, wait, that's signs. What is it in War of the Worlds that kills them? I forget.
yeah, I don't remember either. I read the book I haven't seen
I've read the book and
either
I've
of the
seen both
movies.
films, and I've seen both film versions multiple times, and I can't remember what it is that does them in. But yeah, it was something that existed on Earth that just didn't exist on their planet. That it's like, oh,
Right.
that can be a weapon.
Yeah, yeah. And then the cast
Yeah,
of
okay.
Mars Attacks.
I wanted to say is I want to hear what your thoughts on this, but let me just for anybody who's unfamiliar, this is so Mars Attacks, you need to see this movie. It's amazing. 1996. Here's the summary for it, and then I'm going to read the cast list, and then you can comment on it.
Okay.
So Earth is invaded by Martians with unbeatable weapons and a cruel sense of humor. That's the description according to IMDb. And then the cast and crew, let me just pull this up. All right. See if you recognize any names. Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, Annette Bening, Pierce Brosnan, Danny DeVito, Martin Short, Sarah Jessica Parker, Michael J. Fox, Rod Steiger, Tom Jones, Lucas Haas, Natalie Portman, literally Natalie Portman, 96.
Yep.
Jim Brown, Lisa Marie, Sylvia Sidney, Paul Winfield, Pam Grier, who was in Jackie Brown, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Pam, yeah,
okay.
she plays Jackie Brown, right?
Right.
Pam Grier.
Yeah.
Jack Black was in this.
Yeah.
Christina
Briefly.
Applegate. Yes. Christina Applegate. Trying to see any others. I think that's
the thing
enough.
With this film, like it's almost feels like just a collection of cameos.
Yes.
But it's so well done. Like Pierce Brosnan's character and I believe it's Sarah Jessica Parker that the two of them have the relationship, right? And their story doesn't really go anywhere. They kind of just appear here and there, like they're heads that are
yeah.
They're yeah, so random. Jack Black's character, he's like trying to be in the army. He's like assembling a gun and like looking under his blindfold to like cheat about it. And then like he's finally getting to go in battle. And he's like, die! Uh-oh. And like part of the gun just falls right off. And they just kill him right there. It's like, wait, what? Jack Nicholson dies twice, I think, because he's two different characters.
Right, he is two different characters in this. I forgot about that. Yeah, and it's this. There's so many things that are so interesting about Mars Attacks because, in part, like you're dealing with it. You get such a different aesthetic. The mise en scène of Mars Attacks is so different from most, not even most other Tim Burton movies. But this is where, like, he has got this uncanny ability to create a world that is so highly fleshed out, right? Where it's just, it looks like a fully formed world, but it's not a world that you recognize. And that's just, I don't know how he does it. Like you can imagine what everything off scene looks like, everything off camera, that would all look similar to this. And he's got this great ability to give you just enough that in your head, you can visualize everything that he's not showing you too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's incredible because I can imagine what the Martian cities look like.
Yeah,
just based on like the way that they act. And by the way, the creature design on the Martians is incredible.
It's so good.
It holds up.
It absolutely does. I don't even know.
Some of the effects don't. I will admit that some of the effects don't. But my goodness, those Martians are iconic, and they're just screaming red rum,
right?
The entire film.
Right.
You're just like, wait, aren't they just saying murder backwards?
Yeah, exactly. Shining. Yeah, I mean that part's brilliant, and it's also, it's not a parody. I mean, if anything, I would say it's pastiche. I don't know if you know the distinction between these.
Not fully, but like I'm aware of them, but I couldn't articulate what the difference is.
Yeah, so basically, parody is like where you are taking the elements of an original text or an original genre, and then you're including them, but the way you do so, the tone is facetious, and you're kind of subverting it the whole time, and you should end up laughing. It kind of takes a lot of the punch out of the original, right? Where you're kind of laughing at it. You know, and so like doing a like you could, but the film is not I don't think that it's a parody of 1950s alien invasion movies, because it's too loving towards them. There's an appreciation for them. It's not saying, man, these things were stupid, how could anybody love them? Instead it's saying, like, these things were so great, how could you not love them? But so then what pastiche is considered to be part of it's a postmodern movement, and pastiche is essentially taking all of the elements of the original text, but you're not trying to recreate it in necessarily a coherent sense. You're just taking a whole bunch of the elements and you're just slapping them all together. And does it all hold up, and are they all being there for an intentional reason or not? Like, it doesn't matter. It's just like, kind of just take everything you can, throw it in there, and then audiences will catch these random references to all of these other texts. But pastiche is not trying to undercut, the original text. It's just pastiche, and this is like where like a criticism of pastiche exists, because a lot of cultural critics will look at pastiche within film or within literature, and it's like you get all of these directors who don't entirely understand the reasons behind different artistic styles or movements from previous time periods, but they liked elements of them, so they're just throwing them into their work without even really understanding the history behind it or the intention behind it. So that's where you get like kind of the criticism of it. But I personally don't think that pastiche is always that unintentional. I think you can intentionally take all of these things and just throw them together and just say, how much fun is this?
Just a little side note. My introduction to the word pastiche was actually in reference to Daft Punk's third studio album, which people have said is a pastiche of rock music. So they were like trying to take all these different elements from rock music, but do them all electronically and just like do like this concept album. Anyway, that's
no, I think that's helpful, right? Because like usually you have to see examples to see how it can be helpful to understand it. And I think like that's exactly it. It's like when you're looking at pastiche and you're saying, oh, so you're taking all the elements of an older text and then you're reworking them in some way, but you're not doing that to parody them. You're not doing that to be like, how bad was that? Instead, you're doing it out of appreciation for it without trying to copy it either. But it's a little anachronistic, right? And anachronistic is taking something like that, like taking an old historical term and then bringing it into the present. And it's like, we don't use that term anymore. That's what pastiche is. It's anachronistic. It's like you're taking this stuff from before where it's like, oh, we've moved on. We don't do those things anymore. And then a director who enjoys pastiche will say, why not? It was fun then. It can still be fun now. And so I love pastiche.
So Mars Attacks, my goodness, I love that film. Like, I go back to it all the time. If it's ever on TV, I'm just like, I'm going to tune in for a little bit at least. And
totally. I forget. I think it was Ving Rhames is like wasn't he the boxer in Las Vegas who was supposed to like lose the fight? And then I think it was Ving Rhames. And then he's like, he's just out there and he's just like punching these Martians. It's just so terrific.
Watching all their heads explode from the music.
From the music. Her music is literally so bad it kills Martians. I mean, it's very hard to watch that and I think this is what Tim Burton does so well, like pulling it back into a bigger discussion of Tim Burton. It's just like he has got this love of cinema, of like just how much fun you can have watching a movie. Like when you watch Mars Attacks, it's just it's got just a little bit of everything, and it is hard not to just absolutely be delighted by it.
it's got the kids who like, were playing the video game earlier, and then they pick up the alien guns and start fighting back, and you're just like, I want to be that kid.
Right, right, exactly. There's so many things
fun.
yeah, it's so much fun. There's so many things to like about the movie that it's like, I don't know how anybody can watch this and not find something where they're like, maybe didn't like that, but I really liked that. And that's what I mean by it being pastiche. He's just kind of doing a little bit of everything all at once.
Yeah, Tom Jones singing at the end. Just
right. And that was like pretty much at the height of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Carlton loving Tom Jones, right? Yeah. And so it's like, to just pick up on that, it's terrific. It's so great.
Oh man. Okay. So other films. Beetlejuice. When I was looking over the list earlier, the IMDb page, it said that a Beetlejuice 2 has been announced.
Yeah, I see that on here. I'll see what kind of details they've got.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Tim Burton fan in general. So I'm going to say that I love a lot of these films.
Me too.
But yeah, Beetlejuice, I mean, it's got Michael Keaton, which we've said before. Like, you put him in anything, and I'm sold.
Exactly. Me too.
And he's not even in the movie for very much.
No, he's like the shark in Jaws.
Yeah, but like because you can like feel Beetlejuice in the whole film.
Oh yeah,
even though he's not there.
Right.
It's it's such an interesting film. With Winona Ryder, being able to like see the ghosts and everything, and
yeah, it's like the Sixth Sense before the Sixth Sense.
Right.
It kind of is.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's not as suspenseful or anything, but it is like in terms of the story. Then yeah.
Yeah, Beetlejuice. I think one of the things that to me is so interesting about it is that it is a film that is, I think, somewhat geared towards children, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somewhat. But I would say it is a more difficult film to appreciate. I don't mean that it's bad, but I mean that it is like what most family movies or kids movies are today. It is just so in your face, and the pace is so quick, and there's so much zany stuff going on with like sound effects, and like it is actually a pretty quiet film.
Yeah, and it's definitely got some really creepy imagery throughout.
Oh yeah,
like with at the one point when they like morph their faces to look creepier, and he's got like eyes on his fingers and everything. And you're just like, oh my goodness, like as a kid that would be terrifying.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
But like, yeah, it is still. You're seeing it through Lydia's eyes, through the kid's eyes, which is what makes it work. Even though it's not for kids, you still watch it as a kid because you're watching through Lydia,
Right. All of his films have got, and I mean, maybe not all, many of his films have got this aspect of surrealism to them. Do you know what I mean? Where almost like they're almost dreamlike in that whatever universe they're existing within, it is very fully formed, as I already said, that you can kind of imagine everything that's off camera. Like, it doesn't look like they just built a set and it's like the second you pan over, you're going to see all of the strings, you're going to see all of the lumber and all the crew. It doesn't feel like that at all. They feel like fully immersive worlds, but not worlds that you recognize. And at the same time, they're not pure fantasy worlds either. It's basically like parallel universes that most of his movies seem to be taking place within.
Yeah, I mean, with Beetlejuice specifically, like the model is a perfect, example.
Good. I was gonna go there. Yeah,
it's so good because then you get to see the entire town, even though you're locked in the house for 98% of the movie.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and you still get a sense of this bigger world, right? Because you're like, oh, okay, so that's the world that we're in. It's just this small little town and everything without having to see it out the window all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
But
good.
isn't the model a very like a really good example of what filmmaking is? That
Mhm.
you're really like you're reconstructing an example of the real world, but it's too
Yeah.
difficult to actually film the entire real world. So instead, what you do is you're always like making this miniature version of it, but then you get pulled into the model at times within the film. It's very
Yes.
um, there's some like it's almost meta theatricality involved in this, right? Or
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
it's calling attention to itself as being an artificial construction that we are on the outside of, that we're watching, right?
Yes.
We're on
Yeah.
the outside of this world of Beetlejuice watching this, and then within that, then you also have got this model of the town that Lydia is then watching, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
That
because
there's
yeah, like Beetlejuice is locked in that that model for the longest
right,
time, and then he comes out, and you definitely have, that thought, like subconsciously or whatever, that like, yeah, he could be here too. Like, if
exactly.
if
That's
I
the
say
thing.
his name 3 times, he's gonna come out of the film and into the
Right.
real world.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's exactly it. It's doing this thing that other films have done. Like you see this in, I think it's been a while since I've seen it, but I think it's Space Jam, right? Where you've got the Looney Tune characters who are coming out of the screen and into
Uh,
like the world
yeah,
of
yeah.
I've only seen it like once or twice, and that was back in the 90s. Or The Purple Rose of Cairo, which is a Woody Allen film where it's
Mhm.
like the characters like come off of the screen and into like the film world, but it's like there's the layers within layers, right? It's a play within a play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I, I mean, yeah, he does do this, surreal thing. I feel like we should try to talk about the films that we probably won't talk about in detail later on. So, Planet of the Apes.
Okay. I saw that when it first came out. I've seen it maybe twice, and I
I
don't
believe you
know.
own it, don't you?
I do. I do own it. I've seen it at least twice. Uh, I love the original Planet of the Apes. Like
Mhm.
absolutely. So like this was kind of like my thinking behind this when I did originally buy it. Uh, that I love the original Planet of the Apes series. Like I have seen those movies multiple times, all of them. They're terrific. And then I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, Tim Burton is gonna do a Planet of the Apes movie. I love Tim Burton. So like how could this go wrong? And then like watching it, it's so strange because it's like Planet of the Apes, the original films are very similar to what Tim Burton would do. And then it's like he had to, like, he couldn't continue on in that same aesthetic because they have a certain surreal quality to them that
Yeah,
you can imagine this fully formed world that you get. And it's like you don't recognize it as our world, but you kind of get pulled into it in that it's immersive. But then he
right.
does the complete opposite. It's that Planet of the Apes, the aesthetics of it, it's like everything is a shade of beige, you know? The
Mhm.
entire thing is just beige, beige, beige. It's just sand everywhere. And there's very little green aside from the
Yeah,
beginning of it. But there's very, very little green or blue or vibrant colors of any kind. And then
yeah.
go
It's
ahead.
I mean you're even like like their houses are like in caves or
Yeah.
whatever for a while. You're like, I don't even get to see the world. And then when you do, then it is all desert and everything.
Yep.
You're just like, oh, this is like I don't want to say it's, you know what? Yeah, like it's disappointing visually to watch because you're just like, I'm not getting very much from this.
I would
Um,
describe it as unsettling. That's how
mm,
I find almost all Planet of the Apes movies. They're very unsettling. They're disturbing,
mm.
and and I think intentionally so.
Mm.
I mean, if you don't know, you've watched Planet of the Apes, I'm assuming.
I've watched the first two of them.
Okay. Watch the next 3. We'll do a whole podcast on them. That'd be great.
Will do.
And so if you have not seen Planet of the Apes, just skip ahead the next minute or so of the podcast because I'm definitely spoiling it. But I mean, like the movie, like the original one came out in like 69 or something like that. So I mean, it's like 50 years. Like, come on, get on it, people.
Yeah, it's entered the public domain of spoiler territory.
Yeah, I'd say so. But basically, the premise is that human beings have destroyed the planet through nuclear warfare, and that you get all this radioactive fallout that has then basically reversed the order of things. That apes become the most intelligent species on the planet, and human beings essentially go down the evolutionary ladder, and they become more similar to the way apes are. And so, but the entire thing is like it should be disturbing because especially you're talking about the 1960s, and this is the height of the Cold War, and the fear of nuclear warfare between the Soviet Union and the United States was incredibly, palpable at this point. Like it was a very real thing. And so you should watch that movie and go, yeah, anything to do with nuclear warfare would be the end of life as we know it forever, and there is no coming back from that. So we should be disturbed by these films.
Mm-hmm.
And
compared to Tim Burton's,
yes,
where it involves more like time travel stuff, and because he at the end of that film, then like he goes back in time, right? But
this happens in Planet of the Apes as well, in the original.
Okay.
Because that's how the astronauts get there. They go through this.
Well, they go forward in time,
and then later on,
okay.
I'm kind of spoiling things here for you. But later on, then the apes, they get back on the shuttle. I forget how, but they get back on the shuttle, and then they go back through that, and then they return to the 20th century. And then ultimately, that's kind of what like does it. It's like, oh, but then you get these highly evolved apes that go back into the 20th century that then get introduced into the genetic makeup of apes within the 20th century. So then as events go forward, that's where you get that shift in, as best I remember it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's odd though, because the villain of Tim Burton's film apparently goes back in time and changes things and becomes like some civil rights leader or whatever. Like he's got like the statue of Abraham Lincoln, if you will. So
right. I remember this now. Yeah, because man, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie.
And then like all these guerrilla cops come out and like are arresting the what's his name? Mark Wahlberg?
Yep, Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, they're like arresting him, I guess, for being a human. And it's just like, wait, so he went back in time and changed everything from like the civil rights era or something? Like it's very confusing. And I've heard that one of the people who is like involved with the film basically said, yeah, we didn't really have an idea for what that meant for the story or whatever. It was just sort of to be like, look, a twist. Like that's pretty much what it was. Yeah. And it feels like an unnecessary, confusing twist that doesn't help the enjoyment of the film, to me at least. But it is unsettling.
Yeah, I mean, that does make sense. That does make sense why. Sorry, I'm just going back through it. I was off by a year. Planet of the Apes. I said 67 or 69. It was 68. What an idiot. I mean, I'm not sure. I should probably go and watch the movie again. But that does make more sense that we need to have a twist at the end of this thing. So that's a twist, because the original Planet of the Apes has got just that, punch in the gut twist when you realize, like, if you're seeing that for the very first time and you don't know what's going on with it, and then you see the Statue of Liberty, you're in the same place as Charlton Heston, where you're going, wait, what? That means that he's on Earth, but not Earth here that it's the future because there is the Statue of Liberty. And then he's like, you blew it up. No,
Yeah.
damn you all to hell, right? And it's like realizing that, and it's just like, oh, like it's really unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
But then
The end
Tim
of the
Burton,
second film, the twist in that is insane.
oh, oh, the second one. Seriously, people, if you have not seen Planet of the Apes, like you owe it to yourself for, yeah, they're remarkable. So the Tim Burton one, though, you can't just try to, I think this is the issue if you're trying to remake anything. Remakes in general, then you're always limited. Your hands are tied.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to just repeat what the original one did, but then everybody knows what happened in the original one. So then, well, you can't do that. So then what do? And usually, if it's a good film that warrants a remake, then it's like, because the first one was done really well, but now you're saying, okay, that was done really well. Well, we can't do it well. Because it's already been done that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a side topic for another day, but the recent Planet of the Apes movies have done a much better job of, taking the concept of the original films and sort of exploring it in a different way. But in my opinion, but
they're doing what films 4 and 5 do. So
okay.
yeah, like I watched them. I honestly, I haven't even been able to get through the most recent one. I've really struggled to get through them because I really like the original one. So I'm just like, this is just the same ground that you've already covered. For me, it's just it's films 4 and 5. So then I'm like, I get it. I know what this is doing. I know where you're going with this, but you're not doing anything original or interesting or different. And if you're really dependent on the plot, then if I already know the plot twists, then you're not really doing much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say just visually, the one thing, Planet of the Apes, the one that Tim Burton did, it's confusing because it's so green and really saturated colors visually, and it's like the antithesis of the aesthetics of the original Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. I will, say that, like, thank you for doing the practical effects.
Yeah.
At that time, seeing the makeup on all the apes was really good.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it is a fairly disappointing film, to me at least, in the whole catalog of Tim Burton films. And that's not to say that it's horrible, but it's just a little disappointing.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's a terrible film. And in some ways, I think I find it more interesting than the newer Planet of the Apes movies. But that, again, I think people who, just for me, because I've seen the original 5 so many times, then unless you're doing something really different, I'm not that interested. And he is doing something different in Planet of the Apes, but I don't know that it's certainly not better than the original films.
Right. Yeah.
So
Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Tim Burton's first directorial feature film. What an outstanding style to have as your first film.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just incredible. I mean, Pee-wee Herman had already been on air, right? Like as a television series before that, correct?
I'm looking it up because I'm curious about that. But
okay,
let's go with that for now.
Yeah. But I mean, still, like, everything about that film is so unusual.
Oh, yeah.
You've got the absolute perfect man-child of Pee-wee Herman. I'm forgetting the actor's name, but he does a fantastic job with the character. And then you've got, I don't know, like, he's on this journey to get his bike back.
Right.
And he just believes this psychic who says, oh, it's in the basement of the Alamo. And he's just like, okay, I'll go to Texas. And you're just like, wait, what?
Right.
And then you're just going with him across the country as
Right.
he tries to get back his bicycle. And you're just like, oh, okay. It's such an interesting, I don't know, wacky film. And yeah, I mean, you've got such random, random visuals in there. You've got Large Marge, who is absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
You've got at the truck stop, you've got a random giant dinosaur there.
Right.
For
Right.
no reason. When he's stuck in the dark, then the screen is entirely black, and then you see his eyes, and they're like, it's clearly just like, like animation or like claymation or something, like just these little eyes floating around. And you're just like, wait, when this became a cartoon?
Yes.
Which, I mean, it always was a cartoon, but it's a live action cartoon.
Well, Pee-wee's Playhouse wasn't a cartoon.
No. But I mean, like it's a live action cartoon, as in like everything
Okay.
that happens in it is cartoonish.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's
totally.
done
Right.
live action.
Yes, you're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I just recently saw the first half of the film on TV. I think last weekend, and yeah, and I was just like, wow, this is so weird and wacky. I don't know how the studio would have approved it. Have you?
Great question. That's a really great question. Like,
I'm glad that they did.
Me too. But of all like pitch meetings, I think that would be one of the ones that I'd most want to be in on. I would genuinely want to know, how was this pitched? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the studio executives were just not listening, and they're just, yeah, that sounds great. Do it. And they don't even know what they just approved.
Yeah. So, sorry. Have you figured out which came first then? The TV
Sorry,
series.
I'm still looking into it, but it is interesting though that I don't know if you knew this, but the music in Pee-wee's Big Adventure was Danny Elfman.
Oh, Danny Elfman. He's fantastic. Danny Elfman has been. I mean, Danny Elfman and Tim Burton have worked together so many times. I can't name all of them.
I know, and that's the thing. Like, it's, if you're looking at Tim Burton films, then like when you're looking at Tim Burton as a director, I think like you've got to look at his collaborators, right?
Yes, absolutely. He uses the same, like makeup artists and I think set decorators as well. He uses Danny Elfman for music. Then you've got all the actors that he frequently works with. Michael Keaton, of course, that he's worked with a number of times, and Johnny Depp.
For sure.
Yeah.
Helena Bonham Carter.
Which they were married for a little bit, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, the fact that he's able to get these incredible artists really to work with him time and time again.
Yeah.
Is because you can say, oh, well, see, it's not really him, it's these people. But it's like, well, but they're choosing to work with him. Like, he is fantastic. And these other artists know that, and they want to work with him.
Of course.
Even Danny DeVito.
Yeah, I was going to say Danny DeVito as well should be mentioned.
Yeah, he's he was in Batman Returns.
Yeah.
As a circus-inspired penguin.
Yeah.
Then he was in Big Fish as the ringleader, the circus ringleader, and now he's going to be in Dumbo.
I noticed that. I've been looking.
The circus ringleader. He has said, Danny Elfman,
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito has said like that this completes his trilogy of circus performances with Tim Burton.
That's hilarious.
It's great. And then he was also in Mars Attacks.
Right, yeah, he was in Mars Attacks as well. Yeah, I think there's so much to say about all of this stuff that like I'm having a hard time just even like focusing here,
Yeah.
because there's so many interesting things. Certainly, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that Tim Burton, what seems to be there within so many of his films is this love for, it's an anachronistic uh, element, pulling this thing from history and then bringing it into the contemporary age, but the love of the circus, right? The
Yeah.
circus and the sideshow, the
Right.
carnival.
Yeah.
Like his films are very carnival-like.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if I was going to suggest this later. I think that we should do a separate podcast specifically around the films that he's produced but not directed.
Oh, that'd
Uh,
be interesting.
yeah, because he's done so many. I mean, just top of the list is The Nightmare Before Christmas, which everybody attributes to him, but he did not direct.
Right.
Um, but yeah, just he's he just has this element of whimsy that he likes to instill in people. Like,
Yes.
just yeah, everything is it's recognizing that it is a production, but it's a
Yes.
fully formed production,
Yeah.
right? Like going back to what you were saying at the beginning of like you can see what the world looks like beyond the
Yeah.
camera, and it's just this expanded version of a circus, right? It's like look at these
Absolutely.
incredible things that can exist in the world but
Right.
don't exist in the world.
Yeah, I think, and I'm really interested in this idea because I'm just thinking about it now as we're talking. But I think that would be a very good way of approaching his films to try to understand them. That you've got the circus or the carnival, and basically the circus or the carnival comes to town, and you get the regular people who get plucked out of their ordinary lives that are very much grounded in reality, and then you go into this fantastical setting and you're kind of immersed in it for the time that you're there, and there's the illusion the entire time that all of these things that are too fantastical to be true trying to convince you, but they are true, right? And these things are all existing. You're walking around and there's elephants and there's,
Yeah.
the clowns and the circus performers, the trapeze artists, and people who can like control lions and all of this
Yeah.
stuff. And it's amazing. And I think that's very much what film is when it's really working. Then
Mhm.
film does the same thing. Film is basically the carnival coming to town. Uh,
Yes. And even in that regard, Big Fish is a perfect film in terms of theme. It's, a father, for those who haven't seen it, please go watch it.
yeah,
It's touching and
it
yeah,
is.
just it's incredible. Um, but you have this father telling multiple stories to his son, and as the son gets older he stops believing them. He's like, oh come on, like these things they're ridiculous, they're too fantastical, there's no way that they actually happened to you.
Hmm.
And it's beautiful the way that that film works at
Yeah.
showing like, well yeah, it might have been a little exaggerated but those things were all true in some way.
Yes, that element of true and real, it
Hmm.
distinguishes them. And it's like, yeah, what's true is not necessarily what's real,
Right.
because what's true is ultimately more real than real, but you can't prove it. Like something like love. How do you prove what love is in the real world? It's like, well, it's not tangible, but it's true, right?
Right.
That
Yeah.
love is true. It is a thing that does exist, but then trying to prove its existence and to put your hand on it, it's impossible to do. And it's like those true things are really the important things in life, and not so much whether it's real or not.
Yeah. Yeah. um I want to get back to Tim Burton and Danny Elfman working together so frequently. I love Danny Elfman's work even when he's not working with Tim Burton.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like he wrote the Simpsons theme song.
Yeah.
How can you?
Yeah.
He did like the Men in Black score. He did the Spider-Man, like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films.
Yep.
And yeah, just he does a fantastic job with music. And he has said before that because the way that like the uh, film music industry works is like directors will or like when it first goes to the editing room, then they'll just put random music on top of the film so that
Okay.
they'll be able to edit around that. They'll be like, oh yeah, so this will be kind of the feeling that it will have later.
Okay.
And Danny Elfman specifically has come out against that. He says, no, you shouldn't do that. Like, if any director ever hands me a film or a sequence and says, yeah, here we go, this is the feel that we have, and already has music plugged in there, he gets upset because he's like, I don't want to work with that. Like,
Right.
it's my vision that I want to put into it. And if the director can't trust me to put that in there, then there's no point in me working for them. So
Yeah.
and again, like we talk about Tim Burton having such an incredible vision, that I see that appreciation for uh for Danny Elfman's work with
Yes.
Tim Burton. Like both of them are these visionaries who
Yes.
just very much, they have an idea of what they want to do, and you kind of have to step back and be like, you do what you do.
Right. Well,
it's this element of trust, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. And I didn't know all of that about the way that a score is typically done.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, and you are right. And even the way you explain visionary, that it's like visionary, like, because a lot of people will I think be critical of that term, where it just seems like an empty word to just attribute to somebody who does good stuff. But visionary has like an actual definition, which is that you have a vision for something, and it typically is a unique vision, and that you see it through, and that you can bring it to life. And seeing how, I think this is the interesting thing about Tim Burton, and I really wonder, I don't know enough about either him or M. Night Shyamalan, because obviously I think you'd have to really be on set to see how either one of them works to really know this stuff. But I really do wonder how they approach things, and the differences, because M. Night Shyamalan is a contemporary of Tim Burton. I imagine a little bit younger, based off of when his first feature came out, but pretty close to the same time frame, as like they're both still making movies.
Yeah, there was like about 14 years between when each of their first films came out.
If that. Yeah. And
between 85 and 99 for The Sixth Sense, I believe.
Yeah, that's when The Sixth Sense came out. But I think he did a couple features before that were not very well known. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't really see the same approach with M. Night Shyamalan as you like, that collaborative approach, as what you get with Tim Burton. Even though he has used some of the same actors in his films, but I'm trying to think of,
because he's used Bruce Willis a number of times.
Yeah, exactly. Bruce Willis is who I was really thinking of. But I don't really see. It seems like M. Night Shyamalan has very much got the, like, he writes it, he produces it, he directs it, and it is his film.
Right.
And then having a different approach to auteurship with Tim Burton, where it's like he's often writing and directing and producing, but he also seems really dependent on his collaborators to bring their own style to the film and to let them work. But I don't know if that happens as much with M. Night Shyamalan movies. And I think if you're looking at their two filmographies, who is more consistent? And it definitely is Tim Burton, where it's like consistently you're getting something with his films where it's like M. Night Shyamalan has got some films that are just not good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the issue if you're going too independent and you're not collaborating as well. I don't know. It's a theory that I'm working through.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point to bring up because like film is a collaborative medium, and I mean that's where all the criticism behind the concept of an auteur comes from. But I like the concept of the auteur, and I think that there is still room for auteurs who know that they can't do everything,
Right.
even though it's their idea. And again, like I don't know about M. Night Shyamalan. I'm not trying to like throw him under the bus or anything.
No,
but
no.
but just saying, like with Tim Burton, it's very clear that he does understand that. Where
Yes.
there are things that like he's not an actor, so
Right.
he knows that he can trust Danny DeVito and Johnny Depp and Michael Keaton. That's why he hires them time and time again,
Right.
and Helena Bonham Carter. It's not, just, oh, we're good friends, so I'll give him another shot. Like, he's honestly just like, I know that they can do a good job, so why wouldn't I hire them?
Exactly. And if you trust people, I think it's also a different approach to directing and certainly a different approach to auteurship. And I do like the idea that there can be different approaches to auteurship, right? Because I think like
Oh yeah,
M.
yeah,
Night
for sure.
Shyamalan, to defend him, it's that the great thing about him is that he produces things that are so amazing when he really gets it right. And
Yeah.
like the bad thing is that he produces things that are so terrible when he really gets it wrong that he doesn't have that check on himself. But I like that exists. And likewise, I like that you can have a very collaborative approach while still maintaining a vision that you seem to get with Tim Burton. And it seems like it's almost let me not direct too much director,
Right.
where there doesn't seem to be the micromanagement of every aspect of the film, of saying every single thing needs to be exactly the way I've got it in my head. Instead saying like, well, if you write a good script, trust that your actor or that your actors, that your cast, that they are going to do a good job in interpreting that and figuring out who the character is, because you are dependent on them to actually do that work. You're dependent on them to figure out character motivation and how to play a scene and how to have all of these idiosyncrasies for the character. You can't just tell every single crew member, do this tiny little thing and that tiny little thing and expect to like, I don't think that anybody is that creatively brilliant to be able to like, or at least you're doing yourself a disservice, because as you say, like he's not an actor, he's not a composer, he's as much as he's an artist, I don't think he's a visual artist.
Right. Even if you're a jack of all trades, that comes with that caveat of you're not a master master of none, right?
Yeah.
So it's it's if you want to say I know how to do all of these things, then what you're really saying is I'm not the best at any of these specific things.
Right.
Yeah. So we have talked about the Batman films before.
Right.
Which, by the way, I'm not sure if you saw the news or not, but Ben Affleck is not going to return as Batman in the next film.
I didn't know if that was confirmed. I heard very strong or very well-founded rumors. Has that been confirmed?
Yeah, based on what I've heard, it's been confirmed that he will not be returning. So Michael Keaton,
I know, like what we had suggested.
Yes.
Oh man. Yeah.
Still want that to happen.
Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Danny Elfman,
Yes.
Let's get together and who else did we say we wanted in there?
It was
Billy D. Williams, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Get him to be Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we have talked about Batman. So I would say like you can kind of go to the podcast that we did on Batman to get a pretty extensive discussion, right? I don't. Do you have other stuff that you want to say about Batman and Batman Returns that we haven't said in the previous one?
I don't think so. I mean, just really, I think that that Tim Burton did such an incredible job of bringing that character to life and that world, like that city, to the world, right? Like it's yeah. It has that same surreal quality, but I mean and the theme song
Oh
that,
yeah,
that Danny Elfman created for that. I mean, it's still it's maybe argued only with the original 1960s TV theme song for the most iconic Batman song, you know.
The one from the 60s, you can't, that doesn't count because they literally go na 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 Batman. Of course people are going to associate that with Batman. You said Batman in the theme.
Yeah.
That's cheating.
Just like I know that some people would argue. I'm just
like the Spider-Man song from the 60s, right? Spider-Man. It's like obviously I'm going to associate them with Spider-Man.
Yeah. Just like, don't you just get chills when you hear that? You're just like,
I know. Absolutely. Yeah, it's incredible. It gets to you. It's so well done.
Yeah.
So where are we at? I'm trying to think because like we've got so many more to talk about. I think we can do this. Okay. I was going to say, where are we at with time? Because I knew that we were getting close to an hour. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to think if we should just keep going chronologically. Or
yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Okay.
We've hopped around a little bit so far, but yeah. Let's
Edward Scissorhands then.
Oh, so incredible. I love that film. It's so good.
To me it's almost beyond discussion. It's just it just stands on its own.
Yeah, just go watch it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need any help to appreciate the film. Like it doesn't
it's a story about snow and oh my goodness, just so good. Suburban world with the castle on the hill, like
would you say, so this would be my question because I want to try to take a bigger perspective on this because it is to me unquestionably just so brilliant. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Edward Scissorhands. Do you know? Like, have you met somebody who's like, I watched it and I didn't like it?
I think Amanda's not the biggest fan of it, but I don't know that she doesn't like it. I think that it's just, I don't know. I know that she doesn't like Tim Burton's style in general.
But she wouldn't.
Right.
She wouldn't. Yeah.
Yes. In terms of people who like really appreciate film, then I don't know anybody who doesn't like Edward Scissorhands. And it's so good. Like so it's a perfect like tragic love story. Yeah. I don't know. You had a question though.
Yeah. So I've got a couple questions with this. Would you say that this is his masterpiece?
I think so. Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think of what else. Like, not to say that he hasn't done excellent films, but if you were to if you could tell, like, let's say 100 years from now, presuming that Earth is still around, which at times I question. Okay, 100 years from now, presuming that Earth is still here, and people are still watching this antiquated art form of film, right? that they go back and it's like
to sit down for 2 hours.
Yeah, what do you mean? There's no like 3D holographic projections in my living room, and then I get to read the script like in Fahrenheit 451 that you're like the teleplays, right? But presuming that people still have some interest in film, and Tim Burton becomes a name like, I don't know, Alfred Hitchcock or Billy Wilder or something like that, where people have not seen all of his movies and they're not familiar with them. If you were to choose one to say if you can only see one Tim Burton film, do you not think that it would be to pick out of all of them would be Edward Scissorhands?
Yeah, no, it would be. It would absolutely be Edward Scissorhands. I mean, there are a lot that would, come up second, but
Oh yeah.
but yeah, in terms of like the one standout, Edward Scissorhands. It's certainly the best representation in my mind of his work.
Yes, that's it. That's why I would choose it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see people arguing that like Batman is a better film, but it's not, because it's Batman. It's not his idea. It's not his concept and all that. And I'm like, it's not the one that I would pick out and be like, oh, you have to watch that one. Like, that would be the Batman film that I would pick out to have people be like, oh, this is how you should see like classic Batman. But yeah, in terms of Tim Burton, yeah, Edward Scissorhands, like the inventor.
Yeah, isn't that Vincent Price who plays the inventor?
It is, yeah, and I mean, Tim Burton has such a love for Vincent Price. It's and so it's fantastic to see him work with, to see him work with him. I had heard people say before that like, I forget who it was who said this, but where somebody said that should be the next biopic that Tim Burton does is Vincent Price.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that would be incredible.
Oh yeah. That would be that would be such a perfect film for Tim Burton to do, and such a fitting, like a film deserving of a biopic, like a person deserving of a biopic for sure would be Vincent Price. I mean, and this is what I would say, the reason why I think Edward Scissorhands is his masterpiece and is what I think, if you can just pick out one film and say, this is the one that you've got to see and you've got to watch, it's because of the juxtaposition where you get a sense of the two kinds of films that he typically does. You have got the dark, the gothic, the dark fantasy to it, but you've also got that highly saturated, over the top look of the suburbs.
It is quite literally where those two worlds
they meet. Yeah. The two come together in that film, and you have this interaction, and it's like that sense of surrealism of this, like
it's like a postmodern fairy tale.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is. And that's what I was going to say, is that I wasn't going to use the word postmodern, but it is. You're right. That, because I was just going to say that it's a modern or it's a contemporary fairy tale, but you're right. It's a postmodern fairy tale, especially in the sense of pastiche, right? Where you're kind of pulling in elements of fairy tale and you're removing them of their historical context, and you're just throwing them all together out of a love and adoration for that. I'm trying to think of other films that, like, what other, postmodern or contemporary fairy tale exists out there that I mean, just even trying to come up with some is hard.
Yeah.
but then beyond that, which one is better than Edward Scissorhands? Because it does everything that a good fairy tale does, right? That you've got these really beautiful themes. It is very much a timeless story, that this could be happening.
And even the framing device of, Winona Ryder's character telling this story to her granddaughter, right?
Yes.
Like, you're just like, oh, wow. That's
yes.
It's very, very much a fairy tale, something that, she's telling the kid in bed, on this night where it's snowing, and it's like, this is why it's snowing. And it's so beautiful.
It really is. It is just such a gorgeous story, and the juxtaposition throughout of this figure that obviously, because it's a fairy tale and a dark fantasy in the sense that this obviously is not trying to replicate the real world whatsoever.
Right.
That it's existing in its own little universe, but its themes carry into our world so well. That to me is what a good fairy tale should do. It's like, well, dragons don't exist, but that's not the point of the story. It's like might not be real, but it's true,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But there are dragons, and
Yeah.
dragons are very dangerous things that do exist in the world. There are monsters out there in the world. They might not manifest themselves as dragons, so that's what makes it a true story, but not a real story. Like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
just a little thing that I have, like where I've been, in part because of the podcast that we're doing and the videos that I've been doing about books for BookTube. Um, I've been watching more and more of this, and it is just driving me up the wall. The amount of people who say like, well, I didn't think it was very realistic. And I'm like, so what? Are you like, and I'm just gonna like very briefly go off on this. Like, you've got to be a grade A moron if you think that the quality of the film is dependent on how well it accurately depicts the real world. Like,
Yeah.
the level of excellence of a film is not about verisimilitude. It's not. It's just not. That there can be such a thing as, like, it's just the simplest thing within any study of art, that there's other art movements, including surrealism, which is only one of them,
Right.
but
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
not trying to depict it.
if accurate depictions of reality was the chief indicator of art, then it would be photographs.
Correct.
And just like, and I mean, even then they're still staged and everything, but
Of
you know,
course.
but you
Yes.
can't have like paintings. Then you're like, oh well, we just have to throw out all these paintings. They're no
Right.
good because we can just take a photo, and it's a much better representation of the real world. And it's like, well, yes, but it's not the true world.
Exactly. It's like, oh, like, Picasso, what a terrible artist, because he was doing this thing called abstract. And it's like, that looks nothing like a person. And it's just like, look, I mean, like, I hope you really enjoy, like you say, photographs and documentaries, because that's the only thing that counts then for art, but that's not necessarily, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just,
Even
it's
still, then it's carefully curated and
it
chosen.
is. You're absolutely right. That's the thing. It's just, it seems really
You want the real
limited.
world? Go outside.
Yeah. But even
Experience
then,
it.
you're still always locked into your own subjective perception of the
Yeah.
world. And that's, to me, what I like about film, is that it doesn't, it, so many approaches to film, including Tim Burton's approach to film, is not trying to, as accurately as possible, depict the real world, because it's like, well, that's a fool's errand. You're never going to be able to do this. I mean, you can try, but there's always going to be a layer of, you're always going to be somewhat removed from it.
Yeah.
And film is existing in a whole other realm. I mean, even the visuals of it, then the look of film itself is not accurately capturing the real world. And I think like the movement within, the tech sector of, with trying to have, I don't even know, because I honestly don't care about this stuff and I don't follow it, but what TVs are trying to do with whatever ultra HD blah 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 blah, that it's like that. I think it works for sports, but it, outside of that, then it often makes the look of a film very strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like the frame rate and everything. Yeah, there are a lot of issues with with
Right.
that, but
Right. And it's like Tim Burton is like not trying, like, if you're looking at Edward Scissorhands, there's no attempt, like, because I think a lot of people, if they don't like it, they can look at the film and they can say, well, this is ridiculous that the family would just like accept this weird dude with scissors for hands, and then he's just going to sit there at the table trying to eat, and it's like a disaster,
oh, yeah,
and
the
then
way
it's just
that
like,
they
oh,
like
Edward.
lean in and they're like, oh is he gonna get the potato in his mouth this time? Oh. Like they're as disappointed as we are. Like, oh.
Right. But if you're looking at that, then it's like, well, that's not how people would react in this situation. It's like, no, it's not. And that's the whole point, is that isn't this whimsy and wonderful, right? Like, isn't this whimsical and wonderful? Isn't this great that, it's a childlike approach to storytelling. It's just like, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Like, just convince me that it's true.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, like we could do an entire podcast just on Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, we really could. We'll move on, because I absolutely have lots more that I could say about it. But yeah, we'll move on. Let me see. So I think Ed Wood is the next one.
Okay, so I have not seen that film, and we've talked about it a little bit already, but it's just I would love to see it. I really, really want to. I don't know if it's on Netflix, and if it is, then basically as soon as we're done recording, I'm probably going to go down and watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's got everything that I love. It's this somewhat of a wacky character, so to speak, but behind the scenes of filmmaking. It's got Tim Burton. Like, how can you go wrong with any of this, really?
Right. Yeah, and Johnny Depp does a great job of playing Ed Wood, and and it's similar. You can see where Mars Attacks came from, right? Because Mars Attacks comes after this, and it's not exactly that he's doing, that Mars Attacks is like an Ed Wood film, but it's also like there is a connection there of just like you can have something like, because you've got Mars Attacks, which comes out at a very similar time as Independence Day. I can't remember, what the order is, which one went first.
Yeah. Huh, that's interesting. I feel like Mars Attacks might have come out first.
I think so too. I think Independence Day was 97, and I think Mars Attacks is 96. But you get Roland Emmerich, who comes along doing these blockbusters, and doing Independence Day in such a, like, I'm going to accurately depict the real world. And I think that Independence Day is like a hell of an entertaining film. Like, I mean, it really is. Like, there's so much but it is trying to very accurately depict how everyday people would react to an alien invasion. And Tim Burton's just like, forget about like everyday people. Everyone's quirky. Everyone's weird.
Yes. Literally, like the first scene of that movie is like a herd of flaming cows running down a road.
Right.
It's like, wait, what? What am I getting into? But it's that level of like, if you can buy into that in like those first minutes, then you're gonna enjoy the rest of the film.
Right.
Like,
absolutely. Because he did Ed Wood, and then Mars Attacks came out 2 years later, and that was really it.
One thing you mentioned, Natalie Portman in Mars Attacks, and that was even before Star Wars, which is like really elevated her career, I believe. Like this was even before then, and again, just Tim Burton, he's so good at, like, and his casting director as well, but like picking out these actors is incredible. Just
that is one of the incredible things, is his ability to pick them out, and he does such a good job with them. Like, I'm trying to think of a Tim Burton film where you say, wow, the acting in that was really lousy.
Right.
Like, but there are plenty of movies like where there's good actors and the acting didn't come out well, and it's like, I don't know what that is. If that was in the editing room, if that was a script issue, if that was a director's issue, but I don't see that. I'm trying to think of it ever happening within a Tim Burton film where you're just like, that performance just didn't work.
No, I can't. Off the top of my head,
I know, off the top of my head, like there could be examples, and anyone watching can leave a comment.
And I
below.
mean, it's also an opinion. right? It's
Yeah, absolutely. That is
yeah.
subjective,
So
whether it's working or not a performance. Um, Now, okay, so Mars Attacks, that was 96. I just want to briefly mention this. I think it was 96 that Matilda came out. Danny DeVito directed that.
yeah.
And I was thinking about this earlier that if there was one movie, there's a couple, but Matilda would be a Tim Burton movie that he didn't direct. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Matilda to me is such a Tim Burton movie, which makes sense though, because it's like because him and Danny DeVito have got this professional relationship, and I think it's
Yeah.
because they see film in a similar way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's very true. Very interesting to think about because Matilda is such a great movie.
Oh, it's
It's
amazing.
so
It's so terrific. And
good.
and it's also because when I say that it's very much a Tim Burton film, it's like a Tim Burton universe in
Yes.
that it's there's an element of surrealism to it, but it seems
Mhm.
like a fully formed world, and
A
it's
little bit
it's
of a fairy tale
it
aspect in there. Yeah.
yeah, the characters are all very quirky and
Yeah.
strange. And I mean, like the one scene that I always think about, like when I was watching Matilda for the first time, where it was just like, okay, I'm watching some whole other thing, is when Trunchbull takes the little blonde girl with like the pigtails and just swings her around and does like the hammer toss or whatever she's
Yeah.
supposed to do, throws her over the fence. The little girl, comes sliding to stop with like all the like wildflowers, the daisies, and she's just like, "Hey!" and everybody's
Yeah.
cheering. And it's like that moment forward, I'm like, I have no idea what to do with this movie because it is just it wasn't even cartoonish, right? Like,
Right, yeah.
like it wasn't wacky. It was just like this is a universe that's like ours but not ours.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. So, some credit also has to go to Roald Dahl, who
Of
wrote
course.
the novel. But yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. And speaking of Roald Dahl, there is also Charlie and the Chocolate Factory coming up. Um,
Right.
but do you want to continue in chronological order, or
Sure. Yeah. So Sleepy Hollow is 99.
I
That
have
I've
not seen
seen
that.
that. I've seen that several times. I own that one as well. Yeah, I really like that. I'm trying to think. It's got Johnny Depp, and I'm trying to think of who else it has. Sorry, just give me a minute here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's got Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci is in it, and
Okay.
she
Yeah,
plays she played Wednesday Adams.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Which, okay, the Addams Family as well should be a Tim Burton
Yeah,
film.
I know there are multiple ones.
Yeah, yeah,
Nightmare Before Christmas.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because Tim Burton has I mean, he did produce Nightmare Before Christmas, and oh, right, he did Corpse Bride. Because I was gonna say I don't know if he's done a feature length stop motion film, but Corpse Bride was him, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Sleepy Hollow. I mean, I really liked it. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but it is very like it's a very Tim Burton film. The aesthetics of it, it's like a gothy Tim Burton film.
Yeah. But
It's
more of like a horror, correct?
Yeah,
Or
it's closer to horror. It's not, an intense horror film,
Mhm.
but absolutely, it's got elements of horror to it. Planet of the Apes, we've talked about that. 2003's Big Fish. Uh, that one,
Which
yeah, go ahead.
not enough people talk about Big Fish. It's I think it's such a great film. And it might it might be like the least Tim Burton film in terms of style, but
Yeah,
it's so good and it still carries on those same themes. Um,
absolutely. I was going to say that I think that it is maybe the least Tim Burton film that he's ever
yeah,
done, but it is taking, like visually, but it is
right.
taking a lot of those themes. I feel like most of his films, he tends to come at things from the side, right?
Hmm.
Like Edward Scissorhands, it's like, well, he wants to take on this concept of, what do we do to outsiders in society and conformity. versus individuality, and how do you have plurality within a society where you've got like people who are very, very different, but like the suburbs that you get within the film, it's everybody is living the same life, all the vehicles at the same time in the morning, they all like pull out all along the street, and it's just
so
conformity,
perfectly
conformity.
choreographed.
Right. Versus this strange outsider character. And some people have no problem with outsider characters and embrace them, but then other people don't like what's strange and different, and they attack it and they vilify it. Right. But he's coming at that from the side where it's like a fairy tale. But I think with Big Fish, it's like he doesn't really do this in really any other movie. There might be a couple examples, but very rarely he's just head on of just, here's the theme, here's what I'm interested in, and here's the story. You don't have to really like try to work your way in from this weird surreal angle to get to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also it's also like he doesn't have very many of his frequent collaborators. I believe Helena Bonham Carter is in it, as well as Danny DeVito. But outside of that, like, you don't have Michael Keaton, you don't have Johnny Depp. Instead, you have Ewan McGregor in the lead role. And yeah, if you see that, then you're just like, oh, well, that's really different. Like, that alone is just like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a good film. Go out and see that one as well.
Yeah.
Anybody who hasn't seen a Tim Burton film, we're just go see them all.
Go see them. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005.
Yeah, so a lot of people do not like this film. I really enjoy it, but I'm not particularly fond of the original, the one with Gene Wilder. Mainly just because of, I think, partly like the age that I saw it and everything. The Oompa Loompas just creep me right out. They're the freakiest things to me, like the little orange-faced, green-haired, like, oh my goodness, what were they thinking? They've got the wonky, like, spiked knees, like spike out to the side knees. It's so creepy to me. And people say, oh, Johnny Depp is creepy in the new movie. I'm like, not anywhere close to the Oompa Loompas in the original. So I really, really enjoyed Tim Burton's take on the Roald Dahl story of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It is, in some ways, it's a more accurate version of that story, more true to the source material. But in other ways, then it actually explores why Willy Wonka is Willy Wonka. And some people don't like that. They're like, oh, well, we don't need a backstory for him. He's just this wacky, candy maker and whatever. But I appreciated seeing like a little bit of the backstory there. So yeah, it's all kinds of awesome visuals. Deep Roy played every single Oompa Loompa. It's just so weird and wacky, but like, they had to film him in like every different spot doing like the same dance just to choreograph it and everything. Like, I mean, obviously there were moments where it was a lot of CG, but for the most part, like, they actually did get him to like sit in or stand in different places and go through those motions. You've got Danny Elfman doing the music, which is absolutely fantastic. All original music with the Oompa Loompa songs being taken straight from the books. With some minor edits, because the ones in the books kind of go on for a little bit. Like, I think there's one or two that are like 2.5 pages long of just verse. So they cut down the lyrics there, but still such a good job with with that film, capturing the visual, I don't know, imagination of, candy can be anything. It doesn't have to have a point and all that. I'm just like, yeah, that's what the film is. Like, it's
So I
Yeah,
haven't
it
seen
actually.
it. I haven't seen it, so I can't really comment on it. But can you explain that just a little bit more about candy can be anything?
Yeah, so there's Willy Wonka, he creates ice cream that never melts. Like the whole thing with the transporting chocolate via television and all that, and
Hmm.
like these exploding like fireworks style candies that are like in this giant room. They've got Mount Fudge that they're like literally Oompa Loompas are like scaling the side of it and everything. Like there are a lot of like really fun visual things. You see like a pink sheep and you're like cotton candy.
Right,
um,
right.
you know, like the whipped cream room where it's just fantastic. You, you look in and you see an Oompa Loompa with a whip whipping a cow, and it's like, what is that for? Whipped cream. What? That's not how you make whipped cream. And Willy Wonka is just like, whipped cream isn't whipped cream at all unless it's been whipped with whips. And you're just like, okay. Like
That is
it's
hilarious.
that level of like it has to be done that way. Clearly, it's whipped cream.
Right, right.
um, it does come up in the dialogue at one point where uh, Mike TV, who is a little know-it-all brat. I mean, they're all brats except for Charlie, but but he's like the know-it-all, which actually works really well in my opinion because he's like obsessed with video games and he like figured out the formula so that he only had to buy one bar of chocolate and he got the
Hmm.
golden ticket, right? But when they're in the Great Glass Elevator, which is fantastic to see it done in this other style, and you get to see it a lot more than in the original film. But then he says, candy is a waste of time. And but what's the point of all this? And Charlie is like, candy doesn't have to have a point. That's what makes it candy. And you're just like, oh. And I feel like that's also what Tim Burton does with films. They
That's
don't
what I was
have to
getting
have a
at.
point.
Right.
Like they can just be fun. That's the point of films.
That's what
There
that's
is
why I
no
wanted you to
yeah.
elaborate on that because I wanted to see if that's what you were if
Yeah.
it holds
Sorry,
up
I
like
went on
that.
for a long tangent there before getting
No,
back
that's
to
fine. That's
it.
fine because I really like that because I think that I don't think it's unusual for a filmmaker to use metaphors to explore film to say
Right.
this is what I'm doing because I mean like if you're a filmmaker you have literally devoted your life to this particular artistic medium
Yeah.
like you could do anything else in your life so obviously you're interested in it
Yeah.
obviously like it's important to you if you become a filmmaker then filmmaking in general is an important thing and so the idea being that um, that candy doesn't have to have a point, and it's like films don't have to have a point. And if you're looking
Right.
at Tim Burton films, and I think that's where a lot of people have issues, and it's like, but it doesn't depict reality, and but it
Yeah. And why
doesn't,
do we have to see this right now? And it's like, because it's fun.
yeah, because it's fun, and it's like that's part
Because
of
it's
what filmmaking
enjoyable.
is. Yeah, and it's like film doesn't always have to just be fun. It can
Right.
exist for other reasons, but it can exist just to be fun. Like when
Yes.
people will say, oh, I didn't think that I thought the movie like I didn't see the point of the movie or
Mm.
I didn't I don't know why they made this movie and it's like uh, I don't know because like if you're always looking for some kind of rational decision you're going to be left wanting at times because there's a
Yeah.
whole myriad of reasons why one can make a film so that's cool
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that
and I do really like the way that line is written, candy doesn't have to have a point.
right
And the idea being like candy can have a point,
can have a point
like
but it doesn't
films
have to
can, yeah.
yeah
Um, yeah. So anyway, I would encourage people to go back and watch that film again, if you know, just because there is a lot to appreciate there.
right so the next one is Corpse Bride 2005
Hmm. So I've only ever seen that one on TV, I think.
Okay.
Um, but it is stop motion,
Yep.
which is cool to see Tim Burton really working with stop motion, like really hands-on, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
And going back to
yeah,
his roots, because he did short films before he got
right.
his features, where he was doing stop motion, both with I think Frank and Weenie and Vincent, and there might be others as well.
Yeah, and he's always had, this fascination or proclivity toward models, right?
Yeah,
Like in
like Beetlejuice.
yeah, yeah, and models, figurines, all that sort of stuff that is perfect for stop motion. I think that it's just, you know, I think that he just feels that, like, how would you do the story of Corpse Bride? Having this rotting corpse walking around for the
Oh,
entire film
yeah.
if it wasn't done stop motion. And like you could do it with CG or whatever, but and you could do it animated, like hand drawn or whatever, but there's something that's tangible about all of Tim Burton's work, really. Like
Hmm.
he's frequently, like more often than not, I would say he has physical things more than computer effects, right? Like
Yes. Yes.
practical effects. So it's yeah, so it's fitting. There's nothing to me, there's nothing really that stands out too much in terms of the story or themes. Like I haven't really like sat down and been dedicated to watching it from start to finish, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, I think I agree with you, and that leads well into the next film that he did, the next full feature length film, which is Sweeney Todd. So Corpse Bride was 2005, and then Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, is 2007, um, and it's a film. So you have not seen that, right?
correct. I really wanted to see it, but I just haven't yet.
So it's a film that you brought up this thing with Corpse Bride of, well, if you're not doing stop motion, like if you're trying to do an actual like corpse walking around and it's like this corpse bride, then it's like, ooh, I don't know how well that works. And it's like, I mean, Sweeney Todd, it is just, he is a barber who is literally, slicing people's throats, and it's just, the blood like gushes out of their throats. And like, I mean, I
Yeah.
thought this before I went and saw it. I'm like, how, and it's a musical too,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, well, how, like, is this not going to just be like brutal, like unwatchable, that it's going to be, because
Mm.
it's live action. Do you know what I mean? Like seeing somebody's
Yeah.
throat get slit and is like, that's one of the most I think upsetting and vulgar acts of violence that can be done. It's
Yeah.
because that's such
Yeah.
a vulnerable part of the body. It's different than somebody getting shot, right? Where it's like you can't
Yeah.
imagine that, but you can kind of imagine that feel of like, ooh, don't go near my neck.
Yeah, it reminds me of I'm blanking on the name of it, but I'm pretty sure every film class has seen it, where they cut from seeing an eye to seeing like the cloud moving across the eye, because it's like the eye is being like sliced open. Do you know what I'm
Mm.
talking about?
Well,
Um,
there was the short film by I want to say Brunel,
yes, I
where
believe that's it. Yeah.
and it's like, but he did literally slice open an eye with a razor
Mm,
blade in that film. It was a dog's eye, and the dog was already dead. Um,
right.
but you are
Yeah.
right that every film student has seen this,
Yes. And
because
because it
it's
is like so upsetting to see it, because you see like the close up of like, you see the woman, and there's like the razor blade being held by her eye, and then
yeah,
it like yeah, I think it cuts to the moon with like a cloud
yes,
moving across it, and then it cuts back to the eye actually being like
right.
sliced open, and it's just oh so
Oh,
upsetting. It's
it's very, very upsetting. But
oh.
and for anybody who's like, what are you guys talking about? Um, like I said, I think it's a Brunel film. It's a short film from the 1930s, I want to say. But really, like, the reason why film students study this is because it's one of the early experiments in what editing can do. how if you show this followed by that, that the brain then fills in the connections. The brain makes connections once you edit, because editing is something that is it is part of film language that doesn't exist outside of film. That is a unique semantic device, as in like how it holds together. That language itself, there's semantics to language, that you need to have articles within a sentence in order to connect a verb to a noun, that you need to have those things for it to have any meaning, but you construct meaning based off of editing. So you take this and this and this and this, and then you get a whole separate meaning that comes out of that. That's the reason why film students study it. But yeah, it is. It's a famous example of like just this really like, oh, I don't want to see that on screen. And I thought that the film would be that. I thought that I would have a hard time with it, even though I do like horror films. But I just thought, I don't know how he's going to do this, but it comes out well. Like it really does. It's surprising. I mean, like seeing like, middle-aged women who do not watch horror movies who are like, that was great. And I'm like, wow, I don't know how you did it, but you made an entire film over a barber who's like slicing people's throats open, blood is gushing, and then you're turning them into like mutton pies, literally. And it's, and all these like women are like, those songs were terrific.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
Yeah. Pirelli's Miracle Elixir. That's all I know.
Right. It's like, well done, Tim Burton, because that's something that I did not think he would be able to accomplish, but he did, because a lot of people like Sweeney Todd. For me, this is just a totally subjective. This is not an objective like analysis of the film. I'm not a big fan of musicals, as you know, and so
yes.
That's basically, I'll tolerate this because it's Tim Burton. That's about as far as I go.
Right. Yes. And I am a fan of musicals, so I definitely have to see
musicals
this
and
film.
Tim Burton. Yeah, you should see it.
Yeah.
The next one, we're almost there. We've only got like I think 2 more that we've both seen. So the next one, or I haven't seen the next one, Alice in Wonderland, 2010.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I've always been a fan of the Alice in Wonderland series, story, whatever you'd like to say. Lewis Carroll's, original novels, being called literary nonsense and all that. Like,
right.
They're so wacky and out there, and the original Disney animated film was so good. Like, just so many random things thrown together, and it's not necessarily a coherent, like a cohesive story so much as it's like minuets or whatever, right? Like it's like all these little bits,
vignettes. I think
vignettes. Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's with the 2010 Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland. It has an overarching plot, and it has, like, even once she goes into Wonderland, and there is a story that she's, saving Underland, not Wonderland, but Underland, which and it is a sequel to the to the previous animated Disney film. So Alice had already been in Underland before. And the cast is absolutely fantastic. You've got Anne Hathaway, you've got Alan Rickman as the caterpillar.
That's fun.
Yeah, and he actually, like when he's like smoking his pipe or whatever, or his hookah, then he says to Alice, he's like, yes, last time you were here you kept calling it Wonderland. And, and then it's like, oh, okay. But yeah, and Helena Bonham Carter with like a head 3 times as large as it should be or whatever. Like, it's the effects. I know that I talked previously about the practical effects are definitely appreciated, but I think that with a story like Alice in Wonderland, it's so just incredible to see all these, fantastical scenes play out with, like it makes sense that it's all computerized. It's in a different world, It's
Right. Yeah, so it provides an internal logic for everything that you see.
yeah, yeah. There's there was the sequel, which was not done by Tim Burton, and it was not
Okay.
good. So I don't want to talk
Okay.
about that one really.
Sure.
But yeah, in terms of the original film, I mean, I'm not going to dislike anything by Tim Burton, but I love Alice in Wonderland, and it's very, very good. It's
Okay.
What can I say? I really enjoy it. I like that it's given, that is told in more than just vignettes, because it's, with a world like Wonderland, and it's just cool to see, like it was cool to see all these little stories here and there.
Right.
But doing this 2-hour film, live action film, then I just feel like it works a lot better with that overarching story, with
Yeah.
with Alice having more of an objective.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I have not seen Alice in Wonderland. I think you can kind of see when he goes full color. I don't really watch them. So
Fair.
I mean, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it's like, whew, look at the colors on that movie poster. No thanks. Alice in Wonderland, ooh, that looks very colorful. No thanks. But when it's dark and gothic, then I'm like, oh, I'm there. Because
Yeah.
I honestly, I've seen everything that is dark and gothic up to this point. I'm not opposed to seeing them, and I'm sure I will enjoy them. But yeah, that's just my.
I think that there is something to that where, it does get more comedic when it's all
Yeah.
bright and colorful like that. And it's not necessarily what you want out of a Tim Burton film,
Right.
It's not that it's a bad film, but it's just not what you're hoping for.
Yeah,
Tim.
and they're both adaptations of source material that I'm not a big fan of. And so like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, like it is an incredibly disturbing film. And I love horror, but man, is that thing weird. Like, honestly, like the film lost me at all of the grandparents are in the same bed together. I'm done. No, thank you. This is a weird world that I don't want to explore further. If that's the first thing I'm seeing, like,
I have so many questions.
I honestly, there's a lot of questions that I don't want answers to. And Alice in Wonderland, I'm not a big fan of that. I like the book. Okay, the book, and then Through the Looking Glass. I do enjoy that, but I don't like the Disney film. That's just me. Yeah, like, and like, I'm not saying that they're like that it's bad or even Willy Wonka is bad. There are little idiosyncrasies that I have as a viewer. Like Alice in Wonderland, I it'll sound terrible, but it doesn't matter because I don't think very few people would watch this anyway. I don't really like British accents, and I've got a full British background, like genetically, and it's just
I remember hearing this before.
Oh yeah, like if there's British accents, I'm checking out. It's like you've got to really force me to watch something with British accents, and that is like those are our people, our ancestors, and I'm just like, no, I don't like that.
Okay, so then don't watch Corpse Bride.
Right. I mean, I've seen Corpse Bride. I'll watch stuff with British accents, but I think that's my issue with the original Alice in Wonderland. It's just like, yeah, no. Anyway, like I say, that's not a comment on the film. That's just a little idiosyncrasy that I have. The next one is Dark Shadows, 2012, and so
I've not seen that.
Okay, so I don't know how familiar you are with this, but this was a series from the 1970s. It was a TV series that was, as best I understand, it was kind of like the Munsters or the Addams Family, where you had several very serious takes on like gothic supernatural stories in the 1970s on television, and then Dark Shadows was a little bit more of a satire or a parody of those.
Okay.
And so, like I say, sort of like the Munsters or the Addams Family, where
Right.
it's like you're using those supernatural creatures, but it's like we'll turn it into a sitcom, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, um, yeah, that's as best I understand, that was basically what the original series was, and then you get the Tim Burton film, which I've seen it, and it's got Johnny Depp again, and I liked it. It was good. I don't think that it's it's certainly not the strongest Tim Burton film, but I don't think that that's always the point. Is like comparing it to everything else he's done.
Right.
It's good on its own. Like it's fun
Okay.
and it's funny
Yeah,
and
because I've only heard bad things about it. So
oh
that's
really?
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fun and it's funny. It's kind of um, like I say, if you go into it understanding what to expect, it's a little bit like the Addams Family or the Munsters, except instead of everybody being strange and weird, that you've only got, as best I remember, like the main character, like the vampire that
Hmm.
Johnny Depp plays, because like the description is an imprisoned. Hang on, I just got to pop up. An imprisoned vampire, Barnabas Collins, is set free and returns to his ancestral home, where his dysfunctional descendants are in need of his protection. So,
Okay.
um, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people don't really care for it, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It's also got Helena Bonham Carter in it,
Right. Yeah.
and so
And Chloe Grace Moretz, correct?
maybe.
She's in
Um, so then I'll check on that. And
there.
then the next one was I'm not seeing her name, but it could be that it's just she was listed much further down. So I didn't see her name. The next one is Frankenweenie, 2012,
And I have
which
not seen that one either.
right. So I've only seen the short film that he did in the 80s before he got his features. And I liked it, but I haven't seen that since literally I saw that in 2003. So it's been like whatever that comes out to, like 16 years or something like that. Uh, so it's been a while, but I remember
Right.
enjoying it at the time. And then Big Eyes, neither one of us has seen.
Mm.
And so we can't really speak to that. And then Miss
Yeah.
Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, 2016. You have not seen?
I have seen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was, more of more Tim Burton goodness.
Have you read the book?
No, I have not.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean it's really, really interesting, this whole concept of like the time loop that these kids are stuck in, and all these kids have powers, like, but they're like, well, not powers necessarily, but peculiarities. And like there's like the one girl where she has like a giant fanged mouth on the back of her head, so like she has to feed it. Like anyway, it's really, really interesting, like to see all these different characters like working with different powers and all that in a Tim Burton film.
Yeah.
Because the overarching or yeah, like the overall tone is very Tim Burton.
Yeah.
In terms of story, then it's yeah. I mean, you said it is an adaptation.
Oh, yeah. No, that was
Yeah,
like an
that's what I
incredibly
thought. So.
popular book in like young adult book, which came
Mhm.
out 2011. So because of like my profession, then obviously being in enough high school libraries, then I mean, and see and working with high school students a lot since it got published. I mean, I've seen it. I don't know how many students reading it. Um, so I was very familiar with it without having read it. Uh, I'm trying to see, but it really, to me, like, because I've kind of skimmed through it, but I have not actually read the book. But it sure seemed like the kind of book that would be written by somebody who grew up watching Tim Burton movies.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. No,
Like,
it
yeah,
is it's a really interesting film. I think now I'm struggling to like remember the beginning of it. Um, Yeah, no, I think it kind of drags a little at the beginning, and that's I think one of the issues with adapting from a novel in general, because the introduction to a novel grabs you in a different way than a film does.
Right.
So I think it takes a little bit to get into, but once you get into it, then it's really good and really fun. And yeah.
Right. Just a little, this to me is interesting. So it was a debut novel,
Oh,
2011. And then the guy who wrote it, Ransom Riggs is his name. So it's a contemporary fantasy debut novel by American author Ransom Riggs. The story is told through a combination of narrative and vernacular photographs from the personal archives of collectors listed by the author. And so, um, because so, and that is it. Like when you like look through it, it's almost like a pastiche, right? It's like you're combining
mm,
like different art mediums together. Uh, yeah, and
interesting.
and it was like incredibly popular. Like just the little bit that I'm reading here, then it's the book has been a New York Times bestseller. It reached #1 on the children's chapter book list on April 29th, 2012. And it was on the list, just on not #1, but it's on the list for 45 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, that's why like I mean like if you're in any high school library within the last 10 years, like the book because it's just
Right. Yeah.
it yeah.
Yeah. Um, and was that it then for Tim Burton's films?
So pretty much, let me just go back to the IMDb page, but yeah, it's Miss Peregrine's and then it's just Dumbo, which comes
All right.
next in 2019. Um,
So
and
let
so I
me get
mean,
your thoughts on that. Have you seen the trailer yet or
I
anything?
did. I watched it earlier today or yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
So, did you catch Michael Keaton's in there?
I did not actually.
Oh, I watched it and it was like only there for a second. He's got white hair, so that's why you might not catch it. But he comes out of the car and it kind of like lingered on him like and there's like a little bit of excitement of like this guy like coming out of the car and even I was like, who is that? Right? And I don't normally get that way. And then like afterwards I'm like I kind of think that was Michael Keaton, but like it was so quick that it was hard to tell. And he shows up once more. And then like I looked it up and then I'm like, Michael Keaton is in it. And so then I went back, I'm like,
Wow.
oh, that's him, but it's Michael Keaton with white hair and it's longer than he normally has it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Watch it
Okay, that
again
gets
and
me
you see,
really excited then.
oh yeah. So you've got Tim Burton, Danny Elfman, Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito, and I'm just
Mhm.
like, what? And it has to do with like a carnival with a circus.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
this is like the ultimate Tim Burton movie. And
Yeah.
so my thoughts on it are that wow, this is like the ultimate Tim Burton movie. At the same time, I'm I've got very conflicted feelings about these remakes of classic Disney animated films. And
Mhm.
I mean conflicted in that basically 90% of me has negative attitudes towards them. Like there's
Yeah.
very little in me that thinks that highly of them.
Yeah. The in general, then I'm not planning on spending any money going to the theater or buying the DVD of any of these, live action remakes or reimaginings or whatever they're calling them. Not The Lion King. Don't want to go see that because I mean it just looks like the original, but worse. uh, didn't go see Beauty and the Beast because I was worried that it would ruin my enjoyment of the original
Uh-huh.
animated film, which is my favorite Disney film.
Yeah.
Um, I think there was even Cinderella before that. Didn't go see that.
Hmm.
Dumbo, I the original Dumbo film is very short. I believe
It's like
it's
63 minutes or something.
yeah, like it like just barely qualifies as a feature film. Like
Right. Right.
it's so I'm looking at that and like and it has Tim Burton attached,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
incredible. So I'm like, maybe I will go see this one. And it does look like they're changing a lot from the original story compared to
Yes.
like The Lion King, where it looks like it's just going to be a shot for shot remake. This
Right.
one looks like, oh, okay, well, like there's like some aspect with these two kids, and like I don't know. I just feel like there's hopefully going to be more
yeah.
to it than with these other films. So.
I hear you. I agree, and I think the difference, because I'm actually in the same position as you, where it's like I am not really supporting these live action remakes, but I think part of it is that they're taking what are, I don't see how it can even be disputed, masterpieces. Like, and what I mean by that is like these are essentially perfect films. They are about as good as a film can possibly be, incredibly satisfying. People have got very, very strong feelings about these films, and then they're redoing them. And it's like for what is obviously just like a complete cash grab of just if we
there's like, no artistic integrity behind these where it's just...
I don't see how you're building on anything or like adding anything to it other than just, you know, we know we'll make money from redoing this, and we can't just reissue the animated film in the theater and make as much. So if we, you know, basically come up, it's such a studio executive decision. It doesn't feel like I don't think there's any like artist, like I don't think there's a writer or a filmmaker, a director who's just like, oh, please just give me the chance to do a live action version of this. Please just, you know, I've been working on this script and it means so much to me. I think it's like executives who are just like, you know, it'd be a great idea. We just do this and we'll make lots of money. Like we've got all the numbers to bear it out. So that's, to me, it feels so commercial but not artistic.
Yes. Yeah.
But
and it's, because then they've got the Aladdin film coming out as well. I just remembered, but which is going to star Will Smith as the genie, and I'm just like, but Robin Williams is Genie.
Yeah,
he just is.
I think that, like, just in general, I mean, if you did a poll of anybody who likes Robin Williams, his work, I think everyone would say hands off, don't remake anything he's done. I don't know if that's like a fair thing to do or say, but I think that's how most people, like I would say like 90% of people feel. It's please don't do that. Especially because of how his life ended. It's not just, you know, that he died from natural causes. It's, you know, he died as a result of, you know, depression and mental illness, and, you know, by his own hands. It's like that. Yeah, I think a lot of people have got a pretty, like, I think that.
And specifically with Aladdin, and he did not want them to use any of the unused recordings. They didn't want them to use his voice in anything once he was done with the film. He was just like, anything that wasn't used in the film, I don't want released. Like anything that he said in the recording booth or whatever that wasn't put in the film, and he didn't want those in. He didn't come back for the sequel. I think that, you know, he very much thought that whatever was in the film was what the genie was supposed to be, and he didn't want it to be anything else.
Right.
And, it is upsetting to me that they're like, you know, I have nothing against Will Smith.
No,
but I just don't.
If anybody's got the charisma to pull it off, I mean, I think Will Smith would be like one of the few people. I'm not saying he's the only one. He's one of the few people who's he's well liked enough that I think people might go for it, but it's still questionable. In any case, with Dumbo, then what I would say though is that, like, you're not dealing with one of the most beloved Disney films. You're also not dealing with what I would consider to be a masterpiece where it's a perfect film. And I also think that it probably would work better live action, because I think it would be more moving to see an elephant that looks real who can fly than if it's live action rather than a cartoon, because then it looks cartoonish. But I think it actually would be more like, for kids especially, that it would just be more whimsical to be like, wow, this is magical. This thing is coming to life before my eyes. So I think Dumbo, like, out of any of them, I think it's the one that can be justified the most.
And especially with, you know, like animal rights being such a huge thing nowadays, then specifically around elephants. I know that we've talked about this before, right? Like with the elephants at the Toronto Zoo.
Yeah.
Like they're not there anymore because animal rights activists have said, hey, that's not how you should be treating elephants and all that. Seeing a film that is done in live action where it very much looks like a real elephant, and seeing the pain that elephant is going to be put through, right? Like Dumbo. I mean, I don't know how much they're going to be taking from the original film, but like Dumbo, was separated from his mom. Like his mom was like put in a cage and he was on the outside. Like the mistreatment of animals, I think, is going to be so powerful, so much more powerful as this live action reimagining than it was in the cartoon, and that it ever could be if they did it computer generated or anything like that, like full film computer generated. So I agree. I think that Dumbo is one of the few films where I would say, oh, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
The Jungle Book was, I realize that's another one that I didn't talk about. I did watch that one on Netflix, and I think that it changes enough from the original to be, sort of its own story. But there's the Jungle Book is definitely, again, not one of Disney's masterpieces or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, I think that falls more into the camp of like, oh, well, that didn't really need to be made. There was nothing really outstanding about it, but cool. But yeah, Dumbo, I don't know if I'll see it in the theaters, but I definitely will watch it. Whenever I get a chance.
Yeah, no, I agree. Same thing for me. Okay, so I've got I guess only really one question, because I had two questions that I wanted to ask you. Because like the one question that I wanted to ask you was, what do you think is his masterpiece? And specifically, do you think that Edward Scissorhands is his masterpiece? We've already discussed that. The other thing that I want to know is, has he made a bad movie? Ooh, I don't mean what's the least enjoyable. I mean, has he made a bad movie? Because we did this with M. Night Shyamalan, and we both agree that M. Night Shyamalan has made bad movies.
Yeah.
I don't know that Tim Burton has.
Yeah, I can't think of one that I didn't enjoy, that I haven't
felt
gone
like you
back
wasted your time, or you were just frustrated. Yeah.
Pretty much every one that I've seen multiple times.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Because even if, like whatever, I just get in the mood for it or whatever. Like it is enjoyable. It's fun. So yeah, I think that is pretty incredible.
Yeah. That's my question with him. Like I legitimately mean that. And like there's a couple. I mean, like I say, like something like Sweeney Todd. I don't think that it's a bad movie. It's just it's not my movie. But if I'm being objective about it, I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just I don't like musicals. So
yeah, I think the closest for me would probably be Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah. That I would say is that might be it. If somebody said pick one that is bad, like, or like the one that really doesn't hold up very well.
Yeah, because it's not unwatchable or anything like that, but it's just it's not particularly good, and it's not something that I really ever have a desire to go back and watch or anything like that compared to these other ones. So
yeah, so okay, I mean, I would say that's fair. That if you're to pick one out, it'd be maybe that. I just want to say, I'm not saying Sweeney Todd is bad, because like I might even rewatch it. It's just that's a personal thing for me. And then
it also has accents in it, right?
It does. It has British accents. It's a musical. It's a period piece. I don't like that either.
There's a lot going against.
There's a lot going against it for me. It's like,
and if you're saying that, like, it's still like, I kind of enjoyed watching it, then I'm going, okay, I definitely have to see it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. That's like the height of my praise. It's just like, here are all the things I don't like in a movie, and it has all of that, and I still kind of liked it. And that means it's a pretty good movie. Because if you do like those things that I hate, then yeah, I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Planet of the Apes, yeah, I'll think on that. I'd like to maybe rewatch it. In part, it was tough for me because, like I say, I don't like any of the newer Planet of the Apes movies, and it's just because I feel like they are kind of like what Disney has been doing with these live action remakes, where I'm just like, you've got 5 amazing films that already exist that I don't see what you are adding to this by reworking the material. But that's because I think I'm too close to it.
Right.
So it's hard for me to be objective about them. But yeah, okay. I mean, I think that's kind of remarkable if we're looking at any director or really anybody working in Hollywood, director, actor, writer, producer, like to go through their entire catalog and say, let's review every one, and then is there even one that's bad?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how many people can withstand that kind of scrutiny?
Right. Yeah. I mean, M. Night Shyamalan couldn't, and he only has however many films, and
Yeah,
like Tim Burton has so many more films,
right.
and yet there's only one,
Yeah, like,
maybe.
oh, okay, this is like a great point, which is going to lead into like one of our future podcasts. Okay, like Quentin Tarantino, if you are watching this, it is possible to make more than 10 good movies. It is possible to also make like 20 movies and have one that's kind of sort of bad, but still not terrible. You don't have to stop at 10. You know, because he's got, for anybody who's not aware, then Tarantino's got this ridiculous notion that it's like there's a finite amount of films within him or within a director, and he's so worried about making a bad one that he's like, I'm only going to make, it is 10, right? Is that his?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Dumbo is coming out this year. I don't know what the exact date is on it. I feel like it has to be coming out fairly soon.
I think so too, because there's more marketing around it. It's starting
Yeah.
to get pushed. Like I was at the theater, I saw the poster there. I know like that Funko thing. They've got their special whatever. I don't care anything about this. I saw like a video. It's like unboxing the new Funko Dumbo box thing. So
yeah. And after that, I did see something on IMDb about Beetlejuice 2
yeah,
being
I clicked
announced.
on it. Yeah, it's been announced, but I see no details about it other than.
Okay.
But that's it as far as what's coming up next.
I would love to see another Beetlejuice film because Michael Keaton, and and Winona Ryder is still doing a fantastic job. You know, she's on Stranger Things.
Now, so. Oh my, like she's terrific on Stranger Things. People who really wrote her off like before Stranger Things, like because she had some issues in her personal life, right? And then because she had a couple like legal issues because I think she was dealing with shoplifting, like an addiction to that. And so some people were like, you know, oh, she's like whatever, washed up or whatever. You see her on Stranger Things, though, man, is she good. She's terrific.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I actually, and that would be only, I think, the second sequel that Tim Burton will have ever made.
Just the other one being Batman Returns?
Yeah.
Very interesting. I think you're right.
Because he did Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but he didn't do the second one.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the second one, but
yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, yeah, and that's the other impressive thing about a director who has done as many films as he has with as many different looks and themes that he's done all of this without really duplicating himself.
New stories all the time.
Right.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
Similar themes, but
at times similar themes and similar aesthetics, but it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel repetitive. It doesn't feel like you're watching the same film, just a slightly different take on it. And so it will be very interesting to see what he does with Beetlejuice 2. There's been enough time that I don't see how it's going to be that there's going to, you know what I mean? Like it's not like doing a film and then doing the sequel like 2 or 3 years later. Like you're talking about like 30 something years in between that. It'll be really interesting what he does with it.
I'm trying to remember the names of the other actors in the original Beetlejuice as well. It was Baldwin. I forget his first name. One of the Baldwin brothers.
Okay, I'll look it up.
I think it was Alec Baldwin, and then Gina Davis. I think.
Yeah, Gina Davis is definitely in it, and yeah, that is Alec Baldwin in there. Yeah, because that's like the husband. Obviously Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder, and I'm just getting the cast here.
So again, like they're all, you know, at least the main cast there, they're all still working. They're
you know, Catherine O'Hara, who you know, a lot of people will know her as Kevin's mom from Home Alone.
Right.
She's a great Canadian actress. She was on SCTV.
I did not know that.
Yeah, with like John Candy and all of those people. Yeah. As best I remember, unless I totally screwed that up, but I'm pretty sure that she was on SCTV. Jeffrey Jones, who plays Charles, was he not the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Day Off.
Right?
Yeah.
Glenn Shaddix, who plays Otho.
Oh, I love him. He's
great.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I mean, those are like the main ones.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, it would I'm very interested to see what he does, if that does come to be, which, you know, just because something has been announced doesn't mean that it's actually going to be released.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That'll be very interesting what happens with that. And yeah, we'll see about Dumbo. Maybe we'll end up doing a review of it.
Yeah, and there are a lot more films that Tim Burton has produced.
Right, exactly. Looking at like what he's produced, and I would like to go into detail with more of these films and like maybe rewatch some of them, and then like try to do like more of a thematic thing, because there's so many different ways that you can thematically look at his catalog.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's just lots and lots of different ways of even organizing it. But this was really good, like as like a first real discussion of Tim Burton, because I don't know if like we've kind of had random discussions about a couple of his movies here and there, but to go through, like, that was fun to go through the entire catalog from beginning to end. And
absolutely, no, I mean, you know, the films that I haven't seen, it was awesome to hear, you know, more about them. The films that I have seen, then it was just awesome to you know, share opinions on them. Like, Edward Scissorhands, so good.
It's so good. Yeah, I really would like to get into more detail with that film, because there's just so much there. And I will. I'm definitely going to go back. And watch like the few that I haven't seen. I'm pretty proud though. I'm like, wow, I've seen almost all of them, and and there are reasons why I haven't seen a couple of them. But Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Alice in Wonderland, I'll go and see those.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. The I just the I don't remember what I was gonna say.
Okay, but I'm sure it was interesting. I'm sure it was.
Totally, train just went right off the rails there. No idea.
It happens.
No,
it's so weird for me with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory though, because I remember when that came out in the theater, and I had plans to go and see it in the theater, and then my plans fell through, and then I was just like, oh, it's okay, I'll go and see it. And I'm looking now, and I'm going, that was 14 years ago. I'm like, but I've had how have I had plans for 14 years to see a movie? I haven't found time within the last 14 years, and it has been on my, I'm going to watch this. Like, I'll just wait till it's on DVD. I'm like, is it on DVD yet? It's like, it's been on DVD for basically 14 years.
Yeah. I actually, when I went to go see it, then I had won a contest.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
So it was from it was in The Magazine Not for Adults, which is a Canadian young adult magazine. And yeah, I just entered this contest, like you had to like do like some crossword thing or whatever. And I was one of, the people who won. So I got a shirt that had like golden ticket on it. And I got, I think 4 tickets to go see the film in theaters. I got a copy of the soundtrack on CD.
That's cool.
And I got a ton of candy.
That's awesome. So
Wonka candy.
You were basically one of the golden ticket winners.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay, let me ask you this. This will be the last question. So, which of the characters within the film, which one were you?
Oh, no.
And you're going to say Charlie because everyone wants to think that they're Charlie. But be honest. Which one are you? Veruca Salt?
I'm not that spoiled. I don't really chew bubble gum or anything.
Mike TV. Mike TV, maybe?
Yeah, I think so, because I'm definitely not gluttonous enough to be a to be a glue. So yeah, I think outside of Charlie Bucket, who I want to say that I am like, then
it's like, which Office character are you? And everybody wants to say Jim or Pam, right? Yes. And it's like, but in reality, though, very few people are Jim or Pams. A lot of them are complete weirdos. So it's like, there's what you want to be, what you actually are. You might be a Charlie, though. I'll give you that. You might be a Charlie.
Oh, thank you. And what about you?
I haven't seen it in so long that I'm not familiar enough with the characters. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this was so much fun.
Yeah, this is great.
I love talking Tim Burton, and my cheeks hurt or my jaw hurts from laughing, and
that's great.
And smiling too much. So
yeah, and I don't know if anybody made it to the end of this. Like, bravo! I don't even care. I had fun, whether you at home had fun or not watching this. Like, nah.
Yeah.
Again, this is my way of getting no subscribers from this. I don't care about your entertainment.
This is just a way for us to justify talking to each other.
Right, exactly. I'm producing content.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, all right.
Thanks for watching. If you did.
Time, people. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Hey.
Ignore the bell, people. We're gonna keep going. We're still ignoring it. Don't worry. I don't know what that. I think that's the fire drill. All right. We're gonna go home. Yeah. All right. We're done.